by Victoria M. Williams, illustrated by Miguel Bustos. Today we will be learning about how electricity works in every single sense of electricity. So let's start. So what is electricity? Electricity is everywhere, all around us. We have machines that are plugged into the wall, electricity from the grid. We have batteries, which are hand, so your phone has a battery in it, and that will power your phone. So your body also uses electricity, so how you move, and that's your power. As you see in this book, we've got interactive sort of flips with information underneath, and we will go through them one by one and see what we can learn about electricity. So, lightning is made of electricity. And before electricity actually came around, it was much harder. We can see in the little flap. So that's washing your clothes, so just using your hands and water, heating, using wood for a fireplace, making food, so hand doing it instead of machines, or lighting with candles, and sending messages which were written. And scientists are always looking for new ways to make electricity, which we'll discuss further in the book. What is electricity? So first of all, we need to discuss what an atom is, and that's how we can learn what electricity is. So atoms make up everything around you, and they make up you. And atoms are so small that even a drop of water contains billions of atoms. And if we look at this picture, we can see how scientifically they are shown. They are made up of a proton, a neutron, and an electron. The proton and neutrons are inside the nucleus of an atom, and the electron hangs outside on its wing. So electrons are the parts that are negative and the protons are positive, so they attract each other since opposites attract. And this attraction usually makes electrons want to stay around their protons. But if the electrons aren't evenly balanced in the atom, you can have what happens when you create electricity. So an electron is knocked off or added onto a certain atom, which creates its element. So electrons can actually create two types of electricity, current and static. So when electrons flow freely, you get a current electricity. If electrons build up in one place, you get static electricity. Static electricity is created when two different materials rub together. Some electrons move from one material to the other, creating opposite charges. So this can have some startling effects. So if you rub your feet with socks onto the carpet and then touch something, you can create a static shock. And you can pick up light objects such as a feather. So if you want to actually see electricity in action, if you have a balloon and you rub it against your hair, you can create static electricity and then touch it to a mirror and it will stick. Too much static electricity builds up some electrons and that will cause them to jump. So as I said, shuffling rubber on shoes on a carpet can give you a static charge. And then if you touch something metal, you'll be getting a static shock. Static electricity can also build inside storm clouds. And it's usually huge charges that build up as atoms in the storm clouds crash against each other. When the charge is big enough, electrons jump and create a giant spark of lightning. If you could capture a lightning spark, it'd be powerful enough to toast 100,000 slices of bread. Electrons on the move. Sometimes electrons can flow easily, sometimes they get stuck. It all depends what substance they're in. So substances that let electrons flow easily are known as conductors. To conduct means guide or lead. Substances that block electricity are called insulators. To insulate means to surround and protect or to stop something from moving. Conductors include metals such as silver, and silver is the best electrical conductor of all, but it's expensive. Copper. Most electrical devices use copper. It's much cheaper and conducts almost as well as silver. Brass. It's often used to make connectors in cables and plugs. Lots of insulators include plastic tape. Electricians use plastic electrical tape to make small repairs. Synthetic rubber. Metal wires are usually covered in rubber to protect from shocks. And glass. So glass bulbs let light through but keep electricity safely inside. Some of a conductor's electrons come loose easily. The electrons jump from atom to atom. This is what makes electricity flow. An insulator does not let electrons come loose. With no loose electrons, electricity will not flow. You can test things to see whether they are conductors or insulators yourself at home in a little experiment. So you can have batteries, a mini LED bulb, and a crocodile clip wire. And you could try things such as a paper clip, a banana, a sock, cardboard, or coin. So you would connect the wires, batteries, and bulb together, and as they are shown, then clip different objects into the gap to see if it flows electricity. Is water an insulator? Pure water is an insulator, but most water isn't completely pure. It often has other substances dissolved in it. These substances can carry electrical charges, turning the water into a conductor. This means it's very dangerous to mix water and electricity. Electrons won't flow without a push, and this push comes from a difference in charges, for example, between the ends of a battery. So we have a positive side of a battery and a negative side of the battery. And if we put it in there, the positive is a different charge to the negative. The thickness of a conductor changes how electrons flow. In a thick metal cable, the path is wide. So lots of electrons can whiz through at the same time. A thin wire makes a narrow path, so fewer electrons can go through it at once. The more electrons that flow through at once, the more power you can have. Going with the flow. If you want electricity to power something, you need to make a loop or a circuit that it can flow around. A circuit has to join up wires connected to different parts. So inside metal strands from a path for the electricity. An insulator stops the electricity from escaping. A circuit can be all one loop like this, or it can split into branches. When a circuit branches, the current splits. So if we have the picture of the house with the wires going in all different directions, that's the way it branches around the house. Every circuit needs a power source, and this one is done with a battery. When the battery is connected, the electricity begins to flow. Electrons are pushed away from this side of the battery and around the circuit, powering anything they pass along the way. The parts of a circuit, such as a light bulb, batteries and switches, are called components. Some components use the electricity in the circuit to do something. For example, they can make a noise with a buzzer or move things like a motor. A switch controls the flow of electricity. So when it's off, it creates a gap so no current can flow, or when it's on, it allows it to flow freely. And when the circuit is on, we can see the light bulb has been lit up. A fuse contains a thin wire and it can protect circuits. So if something goes wrong and too much current flows through the wire, which can melt it, electricity then can't flow again until the fuse is replaced. Engineers can draw diagrams of circuits using symbols. This is a simple circuit with a light bulb and battery. But for a high-tech device such as a computer, the diagrams can get very complicated, as you can see here with all the different circuitry. And here's a small guide to the electrical symbols. We have a wire, a battery, a motor, a buzzer, 2 different ways to do a bulb, a switch, and a fuse. Sometimes electrical devices and wires can short circuit. So this happens when the electricity finds a path it's not supposed to travel down, which can be dangerous. It could give you a deadly electrical shock or start a fire. Most short circuits are caused by damaged wires or water getting in. So never try to use a device that's damaged or wet. Making electricity. How do we make electricity? At Undertwok, we use solar panels. Most of our electricity is generated at power stations. So here we have a coal. So the heat turns water into steam, and then the steam spins a device called a turbine, which activates a generator containing a magnet which turns to spin and produce electricity. There is also a nuclear power, which makes electricity using a substance called uranium. Since uranium is a radioactive metal, it means most atoms break apart easily. As the atoms break apart, they release heat. The heat is used to then make steam and turn a turbine. So most electricity has come from burning coal, oil and gas, but this needs to change. And burning these fuels is bad for the planet. The electricity leaves the power plant through cables known as power lines. Power lines can be high in the air or under the ground. And coal, oil and gas are known as fossil fuels. These are formed from the remains of plants and animals that lived before dinosaurs. Electricity flows along power lines until it reaches a substation. Here, devices called transformers convert the electricity to the right level to use at home. Some ways of making electricity doesn't burn fossil fuels or create dangerous waste. These are known as renewable or green energy. They include geothermal energy, hydropower, wind energy, or light from the sun with solar panels. Geothermal is hot, deep underground, so geothermal plants pump water down to heat it up. It comes back to the surface as steam, where it turns a turbine. Hydropower is done at hydropower plants where water spins a turbine and it rushes downhill. Wind pushes the blades of a turbine, which then generates electricity. So solar panels they work a bit differently. Solar panels absorb rays of sunlight. The rays knock electrons loose inside the panels. These electrons move and create electricity. Even more cables carry electricity to homes and other buildings. If a cable is damaged, you get a power cut. Batteries making electricity using chemicals and different metals. When a battery is connected, the chemicals inside start to react, sending electrons whizzing away from one of the metal ends. You can make your own battery with lemons, copper coins, and galvanized nails. If you roll 2 lemons on a table, pushing down gently to soften them, carefully cut each lemon in half, slot a coin and a nail into each half, make sure the metals don't touch, and take a mini LED bulb and connect it to your lemons like this, making sure to get the LED the right way around. The metal reacts with the lemon juice, pushing electrons around the circuit. This should make enough electricity to light up the bulb. The spark of life. Did you know that you're electric? Your body doesn't have wires or batteries, but it does make and use electricity. To make electricity, you need food. Your food gives you energy. Your body turns some of that energy into electricity. Tiny electrical pulses carry messages around your brain. Your brain is constantly receiving messages. The brain is like a control room. It figures out the message and decides what to do with all the electricity. Messages zip around your body along your nerves. Where one nerve meets, another passes it on. Electrical messages tell your muscles to move and to keep your heart beating. Your heart should beat in a steady rhythm. If it doesn't, doctors can fit a tiny device called a pacemaker. This uses electricity to control the rhythm. Doctors can check the electricity in your body. Looking at the pattern of electricity, they can tell if something's wrong. You can test the speed of your body's messages with a ruler. Ask a friend to hold a ruler above your hand like that. Place your hand below, but not touching the ruler. Ask your friend to drop the ruler without warning and catch it. Read the number by your thumb. The lower it is, the faster you are. People aren't the only living things that use electricity. Some creatures have special sensors for detecting electricity. So a platypus hunt at night with their eyes closed. They detect electricity given off by their prey. Sharks find food by sensing electricity from creatures swimming nearby. Bees can sense electricity too. When an insect flies, a few electrons are knocked out of it by the air whooshing past. When the insect lands on a flower, it changes the charge of the flower, and bees can sense this. A few animals use electricity as a weapon, such as an electric eel. It stuns the prey with electric shocks. Static electricity helps geckos to climb even on very smooth surfaces. As the gecko moves, some electrons rub off of its feet, creating a charge. The charge pulls on the gecko's toes, helping them to grip. This hornet can make electricity from sunlight. The hornet stripes work like solar panels. They turn sunlight into electricity, giving the hornet extra energy. Fungi. including mushrooms, can talk to each other using electricity. They are connected underground by lots of thin root-like threads. The threads carry electrical messages. Clever circuiting. Electricity does a lot more than just powering bulbs and motors. Amazingly, it's also what allows computers to think. Computers and other clever devices contain little chunks of electronics known as chips. They are the very smallest chips, are so thin you would need a microscope to see them properly. Compared to a pencil tip, they're roughly this small. Each chip is packed with lots of miniature circuits. The switches flicker on and off, changing which paths electricity can flow along. This changing pattern of switches lets the computer store and use information. The more switches you can squeeze in, the more powerful the chip. The switches inside chips are made of a substance called silicon. And the smaller the device, we can see the earlier portable phone, and then we can see the modern one. So the earlier one made phone calls, and now the modern one can make calls, play videos and music, take photos, run games, do calculations, send messages, store messages, and connect to the internet. Modern chips with miniature switches are small and powerful and found in all sorts of devices. Your laptop, a smartphone, a tablet, or a games console. The first switches were much bigger. This early computer filled a very large room, but it had less computer power than my phone. Smart devices can be small enough to wear. This watch measures how many steps you take, and inside the watch it has sensors and chips packed with circuits that keep track of everything. The main chip controls the display. There's a mover sensor which counts the steps, and a memory which stores them. Chips allow robots to move around, carry out tasks and make decisions, such as this security robot which sends a video to the police. Scientists have created clothes with chips in the fabric, such as this one with LEDs, so it can change the colour. Smart clothes can help people look after their health, so a heart rate monitor. Robotic rovers explore other planets. Then they can beam their information back to Earth. Some chips can even link up with human brains. So this person has an artificial arm which controls with the neurons from their brain. So sensors pick up signals from the brain and tell the chip to move the arm. In the future, devices will keep getting smarter and smaller. Engineers are working on very powerful chips called quantum chips, and machines that can learn for themselves, known as AI, or artificial intelligence. Electricity in the future. Around the world, lots of scientists are working on a new planet-friendly ways of making electricity. One day, electricity might be made using wastewater from people's drains. So as the water falls, it could turn turbines making electricity. Solar panels in space work a lot better than on Earth. So energy could be collected in space and beamed down to Earth. And exercise materials and exercise bikes that can power things. A new type of nuclear power could provide almost endless electricity with no dangerous waste. Nuclear fusion creates energy by smashing atoms together. This is what powers the sun. But scientists are still a long way from perfecting the process. Other ideas include making electricity from volcanoes, or the warmth of your body, and even urine. Maybe one day you'll invent a new way of making electricity. Here are a few more amazing things to know about electricity. Every second, about 100 lightning bolts strike Earth. The first electric vehicle was built in the 1830s. Leftovers from local cheesemakers are poured into a vat full of tiny living things called bacteria. The bacteria eat the leftovers and let off gas. The gas is burned and the heat is used to make electricity. In ancient times, some people used shots from electric fish to try cure headaches. And you can use static electricity to make things jump. Tear some little pieces of tissue paper, run a plastic comb through your hair, and wave the comb over these pieces, and you should see them jump. That was how it works, electricity. Yeah. Do you have another book?